Hello traders, in this video we will explore
All right, the Fed rate hike is today, guys. Today we got the Fed rate hike decision. Let me know what you guys think we're gonna get. I'm ready. Hopefully we get some good stuff. Hopefully the Fed, my guess, what do you guys think this is gonna come out? I think the Fed is gonna come out a pause or skip, and then afterwards they're gonna be a little bit more bearish or hawkish during the actual press conference. That's my guess, pure guess. Have no idea what we're gonna get. Do I think they raise today? No. Should they? 100% they should. The broader economy is already showing signs of stagflation. To not raise means higher for longer. Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm not necessarily against that. Yeah, it's unlikely they're going to hike today. Again, it's just very unlikely. I mean, could they? Yes. Will they? Probably not. Again, y'all have to understand. Like, and again, I know y'all are used to me covering economic reports, right? And so y'all are used to the expectation for CPI being 3.5% and then coming in at 3.7% outside of expectations, right? That's understandable. Very rarely does CPI come in as expected, or I guess it can, but it's definitely more varied in terms of outcomes. The federal funds decision, the Fed rate hike decision is not. The Fed rate hike decision is almost certainly what's expected, especially if it's as polarized as 99 to 1%. And so what that means is, again, I'm not saying we don't raise rates. It's possible. If we do, the market's going to tank. And I'll be very shocked if the Fed raises rates and then the market doesn't tank today. I'll be shocked if the Fed raises rates. But what that means is that the whole market, everybody already understands that it's very, 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 very probable that we're going to pause today or skip or whatever you want to call it. Depends on what they say their plan is. We don't know if it's a pause or skip. What they say afterwards regarding future 2023 rate decisions will determine whether today's a pause or skip. But yeah. So anyways, again, like I said earlier, everybody already expects them to pause or skip today. The real question is, what does Powell say when they interview and do the Q&A? What does he say we're going to do for the rest of the year? What does he think the rate plan is for the rest of the year? How is inflation looking on his end? What does he think? What does the Fed think, about the current economy, recession fears into next year, rate hike decisions for this year and next year, so forth, right? That's going to be the big influence over markets, over everything else, unless we, for whatever reason, raise rates today. If we raise rates today, that's going to be a shock, a jolt to the system. But it's just not super likely. Yeah, we're going to stream the whole thing live, like right here, like we always do. Here, I'll put this up. All right. We got the timer right there. We got about 25 minutes. 25 minutes. Peter Schiff says they're going to go up 50 basis points. Maybe. 50 isn't enough to stop inflation. They have to go back to the 70s and raise it by 1,500. It depends on time frame, Eli. With day trading, absolutely. If you're swing trading blue chip healthy companies, there is some value, in my opinion, and I guess it's subjective. But if you're swing trading blue chip healthy companies or the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ, I think it's okay to bag hold a little bit. I think it's okay to be more confident in like dollar cost averaging over time. Like, one of my favorite trading strategies is very simple. I look for healthy blue chip companies to pull back very large percentages short term, and companies that I think are going to be fine over the next 5 years and they're healthy. And I start to average in as they pull back. If it's a really healthy company, I'll keep adding to it as it pulls back. And then sometimes I'm just going to have to sit on it. Even if I have to sit on it for a year or two waiting for it to come back, that's okay. But a large majority of the time, it comes back within a couple weeks, generally, maybe a month or two. Honeywell, I was losing in Honeywell for like a month, and it recently ripped up, and I've been making a bunch of money every day. I've only got 24 shares left of Honeywell. And again, just to show you the size of this position, I only got 24 shares of Honeywell left. And just on those 24 shares, I'm up about $160, $30 alone on this one today, and just less than 25 shares. So, yeah, that's one of my favorite systems and strategies.
Hundreds
the total open interest and the number of contracts, the net change in open interest. So if you bookmark this link, you'll be able to kind of reach out and every morning take a look at volume, open interest, and get your settlement levels off of that. Good question. And Fred. Recently heard on Top Steps TV that the majority of volume traded is now high frequency traded. Most people here fear HFTs, possibly because they seem mysterious, but HFTs seem to be at a disadvantage to me. As a discretionary trader, I need to be right about market direction. HFTs have to be right about market direction too, but they also have to execute the automation correctly. What do you think? Okay, Fred, the HFTs, algos, they are the majority of the volume. That much is true. However, the HFTs are so short time frame that they do little to direct price. Some algos do, but for a short period of time. So the advantage that I think discretionary or longer time frame traders have is we don't have to fight with the HFTs and necessarily the algos. The algos sometimes come seek us out as far as our stop levels are concerned. But if we're not trading in their time frame, they don't have to affect us that much. That's why I think the scalping or market making that the scalpers in the pit used to do is going to be extremely difficult for a discretionary trader to do because the algos and the HFTs are far better, far faster. There's no emotion. One thing that you do I think recognize in this, Fred, is the fact that the HFT or an algo only works for a period of time. There's a shelf life to them, and then they won't work. So you've got, rooms full of engineers creating the next algo or creating the next HFT. Michael used to say that he thought and hoped that eventually the HFTs and the algos would eat each other, but I don't see that necessarily happening. So the disadvantage that they have is the shelf life can be very, very short, but of course they're always looking for the next HFT or algo that's going to work. But HFTs, the high frequency traders are rarely considering directional activity. As a matter of fact, if there's volatility, they shut off. They don't even trade during volatility.
Hey, Hogue, if I may interject too, because I have some experience in this on like the bonds end, but to give an example of the sort of speed things that they do that make it hard for you as a trader to go back and forth is a lot of it has to do with queue position. Is because they're so fast, they can figure out where they want to get that they can be in the queue first so that if you get hit or lifted on it, they get the best price that trades. And that's something you really can't do by yourself.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Jack. Yeah. I mean, they're always a step ahead of you. because they're number one, they're co-located right next to the exchange. All right. Thanks for the question, Fred. Ezekiel. Okay. Another question from Ezekiel. I need to learn how to read volume better. How would you use or read the dome? Any way you recommend we use fixed range profile and where I could get a footprint chart? Well, a lot of it depends, Ezekiel, on your trading platform. Not sure what you mean by fixed range profile. There's volume profile, market profile. Is that something you're familiar with, Jack? Fixed range profile?
Sorry, I had a mouthful of food.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, the good news is I am not familiar with it. Fixed
Okay.
range profile.
Yeah, that's something I'm not quite familiar with, but you know, footprint charts, certain platforms. If you're, I don't know what platform you're using, Ezekiel. But like, and I'm not sure that TradingView has it, but um, um,
See in the comments, it's a normal volume profile, just user selected endpoints.
okay, so like you wanted to um you wanted to choose like just regular trading hours only. So again, is he in here? Some guy, or is that Ezekiel? All right. So thank you, Robert. So yeah, some guy. I'm gonna get rid of this. So this is mini S&P 30. Okay. So in essence, these volume profiles can be, and this is Tradeovate platform. Different platforms, do offer some of these, some don't. It's really depending on platform. But let's say you wanted to just have regular trading hours volume profiles on this. This is what you would do. You just kind of go up to volume profile, click on it, let it go, and then click on it again, and then click on it where you want it to stop. So this is regular trading hour profiles only. Okay. So, but if I wanted to like add 2 weeks worth or the entire whatever's on this chart here, I mean, all I have to do is go back and stretch it over to the right, and that's going to give me the entire profile. So you got some other suggestions there, like Sierra chart lets you, and again, if you do have like platform questions like this or like tool questions, and if there may not be that same tool on a specific platform, would help to let me know what platform you're going to be trading. Robert Cooney says TradingView has fixed range profile in it. That's what we're looking at here. So it's all in just getting it set up. And as far as like footprint charts, hang on. If you're on Tradeovate, you can go to let's say a 30-minute chart, and you can go to bid ask volume, and it's going to give you, in essence, a footprint chart, but you've got to be really close up in order to see the numbers. So here's a volume footprint chart, but again, you got to be really close to be able to see the numbers. And there are specific platforms like Jigsaw, I think Bookmap, those, they all have really good footprint charts. And there's other platforms that I'm sure also have them. Oops. So I don't know how much I was of help to you, Ezekiel, but just keep fishing around, and you may find that the platform you have has what you're looking for. And I think most of these platforms also have websites where you can go in and kind of search for these things. Okay, so trading view sessions, full profile charts. Okay, Robert does. I know they are available, and this is trading view is not my necessarily primary platform. My good friend Robert helped me get this one set up. Grog, been using one strategy for some time now. And although it's been successful, I think it's time to reevaluate. How would you go about formulating or reassessing strategies? Well, if it's still working, I'm not sure why you would want to kind of reevaluate or change it. You know, I think one of the most important reasons to review and change a specific strategy is market state change. We were talking, if you saw the session with Deanna, she was talking about people that learn to trade in volatile periods of time are going to have a hard time in less volatile periods of time, range bound trade. And I know this to be true because I had a lot of folks in the NASDAQ pit during the tech bubble that made all kinds of money and then lost it when the bubble broke because they only knew how to do one thing, and that was to buy it. Right. And yeah, Robert Harrison is saying you can back test as well. But Greg, if it's a profitable strategy, I would be careful changing too much. Michael, I don't think that that's really necessarily true. Does this mean that one day it will no longer be possible to day trade because computers will always be faster than us? Um, you know, there's there are good things to being a discretionary trader as well. And the first one that comes to mind really is a computer isn't, well, now with AI that may be able to, but a computer is only going to do what a human tells it to do. So if a computer programmed trading strategy doesn't work anymore, it has to be changed by a human being. It's something that is going to take time, whereas humans can change, I think, a little bit more quickly than a set strategy or a set um, if this then that type situation. If this then that doesn't work anymore, it's going to take time to come up with a new operation, if you will, a new equation to make that choice. Now Robert Cooney does some automated trading, and he's, I'm sure, monitoring for performance, and if the market state changes, he's going to have to maybe adapt his strategy a little bit in this automation because of markets are always going to change. Now, I don't know how often that happens or if it even does. So, Robert, I mean, do you find that sometimes there are some gentle trajectory changes that are needed in your automated strategies in order to keep them profitable, or are you pretty much, if this then that, and it works better, works more than it doesn't? Let's just put it that way. Um, well, we are getting pretty close here. AI and machine learning. Yeah, Sam. I don't know what that's going to do, but I'm going to be like John Henry. John Henry, you remember the story of John Henry? He was,
A steel driving man.
yes, yeah, he was um, he worked for the railroad, and he could, could drive a railroad spike with one swing of the hammer, and the steam spike driver came along, and they did a competition between the steam driving uh, thing and John Henry, and John Henry won, but he worked so hard that he died. So there were a lot of folks in the trading pit that fought the electronic trading, and some of that happened to them. I don't want that to happen to anybody, but it's things are always changing, as we always say here in trading. Anything can happen. So I'm going to step away for a couple of minutes. We're going to get Andre back in here to check out the FOMC response and take a look and see what happens. Thanks for joining me today. I look forward to being back here on Monday with everybody for group coaching. And if I forget, remind me, we're going to take a look at one of those documents I mentioned earlier, the market performance worksheet, and we get a kind of a look at how I look at the markets, and maybe it'll help you. Hopefully that's the case. Blessings to you all. Trade well. Be kind to yourselves. Be good to yourselves. Be good to others. And we'll see you in a minute.
Hey guys, I'm Don Gaming. Are you ready for a fantastic game and its anniversary awards? Check out State of Survival now. It's a
Huh. All right. Dang, it looks like I'm not going to be able to get the music back unless I restart the stream. That's a bummer, man. That's a bummer, but that's okay. We're going to keep the energy high up in here as we are preparing for in 4 minutes. In 4 minutes, we are going to see this massive move. 4 minutes and counting. Shout out to Pasternak 88. It's a super fast move down. What's a good support level? These two zones right here, my friend. If we get a super fast move down, 26.6 area and then 26.3 area are the areas to look for a quick bounce. And if we get a fast move up, I would say 27.7, 27.8, the Fibonacci golden pocket retracement right up in here is the good area. All right. Now, of course, I would never recommend trading during FOMC. I would never recommend trading in FOMC. Let's see if we can't. Dang, I was hoping I could fix the music. All right. 2 minutes, guys. Here we go. Get ready, because all craziness is about to ensue. Oh, man. Here we go. Here we go. 1 minute left. 1 minute. Guys, if you think we're going to get a big pump, push 1 in the chat. If you think we're going to get a big dump, push 2 in the chat. Shout out to Crypto Coons. He's trading, he has his stop losses and his take profit set. That's what you got to do, guys. If you are trading this price action, if you're in trades, make sure to have your stop losses and your take profits set, as we are 1 minute away from this juicy move. I don't even know if I can handle it, guys. We got about 200 people in the chat. We got our trades open. We got our levels set. We're waiting for Bitcoin to come to these boxes. Play the music through my speakers. I tried to do it, man, but I have a noise gate on. All right, people think we're going to dump. Some people think we're going to pump. Here we go, baby. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. You guys ready for this? You guys ready for this? You guys ready for this? I'm ready for this. All right, let's watch. Let's watch and wait. All right, it's 2 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock. And they did not raise interest rates. Interest rates have stayed the exact same. They have stayed the exact same. And we are getting a big old blue candle, baby. A big old blue candle. Let's watch and see what's happening right here on the order flow chart. We are getting a blue candle. We actually had a few shorts open right into the announcement. Maybe we're going to squeeze these shorts. Let's see. We've got our levels marked on the chart. Come on, baby. Come on. Getting a purple candle right now. Uh-oh, we're getting a big dump. Big dump down yonder. Okay, 1 minute time frame. Come on, baby. Oof. We are dumping down, baby. Okay. We got some purple. Now remember, if we break down from this channel, guys, it's probable that we come down and grab all this liquidity. All right, our first zone is going to be 26,874. 26,874. All right, this level right here is the first level we need to watch if we dump for a potential bounce. But honestly, we're hoping for lower. We're hoping if we get a drop down that we come down to our area of support right around 26,623. All right, interest rates are the same. We're going to check the dollar quick. What's the dollar doing? The dollar's pumping, baby. Dollar's getting a little move to the upside right now. Look at that big blue candle on the DXY, baby. The DXY pumping like a wild woman in distress, running through the wilderness with a laundry basket on her head, looking like Janet Yellen. All right, the dollar's pumping, guys. Bitcoin not doing very much. Bitcoin now starting to get a little bit of a move to the upside. Here's the thing, guys. We have a bullish divergence right now on Bitcoin. We have a bullish divergence on Bitcoin. We just came down. 1 minute time frame. We got a big old momentum wave coming through here. Let's see if this amounts to something. We got a 1 minute bull div right now. 1 minute bull div. Let's check out the order flow. What's happening live? We got a few shorts opening up. Nothing too crazy, guys. We pretty much just wrecked a lot of longs on that candle, and we have a few shorts opening up. Now again, the real volatility is going to start in half an hour when Jerome Powell opens up his gums and they start flapping away. All right, they start flapping away. Okay, here we go, baby. We're going to pump. Remember, our target's to the upside, $30,000. But before we hit our target to the upside, we're looking at 27.8. 27.8. So far, not much is happening, but we're waiting for the volatility to come in, baby. We're waiting for the volatility when Jerome Powell speaks. Honestly, I'm hoping to hit my TPs on the long trade. Let's see if we can't pump it up to 30K. Shout out to Nathan Sherwood. He says dump Shout out to Walter. He says, Yeshua, Jesus is coming back soon. Shout out to Theo Cal 420. Shout out to DG. Shout out to Soil Food Web Warrior Nothing Burger. Well, you know how it is, guys. A lot of times we see these FOMC announcements and they turn out to have a delayed effect. Here we go, baby. 1 minute bullish divergence starting to play out. We're still holding the channel. This is actually looking kind of nice. Look at that bullish divergence here. Actually, that's not a bullish divergence on the 6 minute. I take that back, guys. Come on, Bitcoin. Do something. Do something. We want a massive move into one of our boxes. These boxes are going to be where we get that reaction from. We might have to wait until JP comes out to speak. He's going to come out to speak any minute now. He's going to come out in about 27 minutes. And he's going to be telling us exactly what he thinks. If he is hawkish, we could see us dump down to the boxes. I hope he comes out a little bit dovish, guys. Let's see. Keeping our eyes on Bitcoin. The dollar right now getting a pump. This is bearish for Bitcoin. This is the 20-minute time frame. The dollar right now up in the last candle. 0.38%. Can you even believe that? 0.38%. Sheesh. That is absolutely insane. Shout out to Double Does 100x on my 0.00001 Bitcoin. He's going to be rich, baby. 21 likes required for a giveaway. That's true. We get 1,000 likes, we will do a giveaway. We'll give away a year free of the Casper Crew VIP Discord. That's a really good value. Do I know about Bricken? I don't know what that is. All right, the ES is taking a dump. We are going to check out the S&P 500 right now. The dollar's getting a pump. We're going to check out the ES. ES getting another dump. Okay, here we go. Now, you guys know I am bearish on the ES. My overall target is actually down around the Fibonacci Golden Pocket right here. I am expecting a fake out of a Head and Shoulders. A fake out of a Head and Shoulders where we get something like this. That's what I'm expecting overall on the S&P 500. All right. As we await Jerome Powell to open his mouth, we are starting to see a little bit of weakness here. We are starting to see some shorts opening up here. This is not a good place, in my opinion, to open a trade. The reason why is because we are at fair value, right? This yellow line, this is the VWAP. The VWAP is the volume weighted average price. It is the fairest price that you could possibly have for all of Bitcoin. And so it's never a good idea to take a trade at the VWAP. It's never a good idea to take a trade at the VWAP. However, you could make the case that we have a bullish divergence here. We have shorts opening up underneath the VWAP. That's usually not the most bearish thing in the world. We've got money flow getting thick. And in approximately 20 minutes, Jerome Powell is going to be speaking. So let's see if we hit into one of our zones, guys. If we hit into one of our zones here on Bitcoin. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. First level to the upside for me, 27,480. If we get a CDW here, look for a rejection. First level to the downside, 26,874. Get a fake out, look for a move back up. And then, of course, we're looking toward our boxes, Zone 1 and Zone 2. Zone 1 and Zone 2, above and below. As above, so below. All right, we got 1,000 likes. God bless you all. We are going to be doing a giveaway at the end of this stream, guys. After Jerome Powell speaks, we will be giving away a year-long membership to the Casper Crew VIP Discord. Shout out to Sue Deep in the chat. Part of the Candle Mafia. Shout out to Frankie Candles. Shout out to Merryman. He says we're going to dump. Big move will happen tomorrow, says Hash Rana. Well, it is a Wednesday. It is a Wednesday, and typically on Wednesdays we put in the weekly high and the weekly low. Typically on Wednesdays we put in that weekly high and or that weekly low, baby. So let's see what happens. A big move is brewing right now. A big move is brewing. It's brewing. People are closing out their trades. They're waiting for JP to speak. They're waiting for Jerome Powell to open up his mouth. He's going to start talking soon. We got about 20 minutes until JP comes on. What ExoChart template am I looking at? It's a custom template. Shout out to Southpaw in the chat. Shout out to Crypto Profeta. Shout out to MM Flipto. Says your Discord is worth more than $1,000. I agree, but I'm biased. All right. Shout out to Daniel from Croatia. Shout out to Joe Brown. Shout out to Big G. Shout out to Tibor Kako. He says soon or later. I think soon, because Jerome Powell's got the sauce, baby. JP's got the sauce. And when he starts a talking, Bitcoin starts a walking. When JP starts a talking, Bitcoin starts a walking. Now it's just a waiting game. Now it's just a waiting game. It will pump to 32,000. Man, if we do, I cannot even tell you how much I would love that. I cannot even tell you how much I would love that. That would be amazing. If we pump to 32K today. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that? That would be absolutely insane. Shout out to Crispy209. All right, here we go, baby. Here we go. All right. While we're waiting, I'm going to see if I can find I'm going to see if I can't find the Jerome Powell video so we can listen to what he says when he comes on. All right, I've got it pulled up here. All right, guys, we are waiting for Jerome Powell to come on. He's going to tell us what to do. He's going to say long, short. He's going to give us the stop loss and the TP all at once, guys. All at once in approximately 20 minutes. Our man JP is going to come out the gate. He's going to come out the gate. All right. I do have to say, this candle right here, this is the 12-minute candle. It does look a little bit ominous. It does look a little bit ominous. Let's look at the first 10-minute candle that we closed after the news came out. That first 10-minute candle just closed, guys. It was a purple doji. Money flow is coming out of Bitcoin. The S&P 500 is getting a little bit of a move to the downside right here, guys. The dollar, as we know, getting that move to the upside. I really think we're going to see things continue to develop once JP comes out the gate and he starts talking. He starts talking at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which is in approximately 18 minutes now, actually, 18 minutes. Let's check out the order flow. Let's see what's happening here. Okay. What are traders doing? They're closing out of positions. People are very uncertain. They want to hear what Jerome Powell has to say. They want to hear what JP has to say. So JP will give the stop loss. Yes, he will. Who let the dogs out? JP, baby. The Spaghetti Yeti, Big JP. In the place to be, baby. Will there be sound? Oh, crap. There won't be sound. You're right. Huh. Huh. Why the 10-minute time frame? Because I want to see, you know, the news came out at exactly 2 o'clock, so let's see how the first 10-minute candle did. That kind of gives us a little feel for what's going to happen. All right? Thor thinks he can ban VIP people in Discord. He can. If you're not following the rules in the Discord, you're going to be banned, LM. That's just the way it is, my friend. If Bitcoin drops, does it make it sound? I don't know, but here's the thing. I can do it for mobile, all right? I can do it for mobile. I can't restart the stream. I won't be able to restart the stream. We'll have to do it for mobile. All right, let's see here. I have to give my interpretation word for word. I'll read his lips. I'll read Jerome Powell's lips. We'll play the video and stream the audio for mobile. All right, I'll be streaming it for mobile, guys. Let's just make sure that'll work. Let me make sure that'll work. All right, we're going to play something and see if that will work.
I don't know. In terms of the technicals, I would say you got a good shot. It's maybe you got a good shot.
So, Ronaldo right now.
In terms of a lot of other things, don't know.
Sounds like it works. Sounds like it works.
TXY is over.
All right, cool. Yeah, we'll be streaming JP. And in the meantime, let's see if we can't get some music on here. Do you guys hear that? Let me know if this sounds horrible. This sound horrible. Let me know. How does this sound? Let me know in the chat. Good or bad? Okay, bad. All right, bad. Crap. All right. It sounds crap.
Chipotle. Introducing Astropro Allergy. Starts working in 30 minutes, while Flonase takes hours.
But yeah, chat, like I know my risk here, right? I know how much I'm losing here. And you should be able to understand that as well for yourself. We could get more positions afterwards too. You must. I'm actually not tired today. I'm actually chilling. I don't know how I'm not tired, but I'm chilling. I need another like coffee maybe, but I'm chilling, man. I think I got some food. You're gonna get slipped? I might get slipped, yeah. It's the food, I know. What's your TP? So my first, we got 3 positions, right? And my TP's right there. The first position we took today, 1940. Second position was 36. Third position is 28. Realistically, 38 and 36, we're gonna be managing that very with manually. So we might close ahead, or yeah, we'll see what happens with news here. But that's just in case it dips for some shit, like some RAM stuff, like in case it just drives. That's where my hard TP is. But we're likely gonna close before that, I'm pretty sure. If it were to drive down, okay? Because for all I know, it could just dip up here. But yeah, I'm expecting to grab liquidity before coming up, and that's why we're still in here. I'm expecting to grab liquidity at 38, 37, or 39 before coming up towards 1970. So I am bullish, but I expect us to come down towards these levels first before being bullish. Because you haven't had liquidity, you haven't grabbed liquidity just yet. What should you TP on the first position? Still tough. I don't know. I think I would probably just close at break even. Or maybe 10% profit if it comes down. It comes down to how far news dips, right? Yeah, man, I don't know. It's been a long time on the stream. It's been like 7 hours now. Good luck. I mean, we'll see. I've already accepted the fact that, you know, stops will get hit and TP will get hit. It's right. My like the idea is like it comes down to how to trade, like what the trade prints, right? But overall, like we're already moved on to the next trade, onto the next idea. This trade will be irrelevant to the next trade, right? Win or loss. Yeah, my stops are 1955.31. Gonna be a gap here. I know your hands are sweating. $20, $19, $18, $17, $16, $15, $14, $12, $11, $10, $9, $8, $7, $6, $5, $4, 3, 2, 1. And we dip down. Cool. What's gonna happen here? Came down as okay, so this is the first drop, right? So as it comes down here, if it rebreaks its own low, we should continue to drive down further, and we'll move our TP, I think, towards wherever next target is. 30, 35 should get tapped if we break the lows here, because after that, you have completely clean traffic here. All right, chat. I think well, I don't think that first position got out break even. I think it didn't get completely slipped through because of the spreads. So yeah, let's see what happens here. If we remain to stay below 1947, it should be good. To drive down towards 1935 next year. But you gotta, there's a speech at 2:30 as well here in about, I think, 30 minutes here. So it's a long time, right? But typically with news, you should be able to continue to whichever the high breaks, like let's say it breaks the highs here, if it breaks these highs here, it's going to continue to drive up, but if it breaks the lows here, it should continue back down to retest the lows. I'm still in here. You want me to do that, chat? I'm gonna close all my positions right there. I think that was like probably like 15 pips or some shit total. 15, what was that? Okay, let me calculate this. So you have first position here. That is gonna be 7 pips. Second position. That is gonna be 6 pips. So 6 plus 7. And this is 5. Like 6 pips. What did I do for today? Yeah, so we may look for more positions here very shortly. But we gotta wait for numbers to come out here. I think 230 here will be a play. 233. Wait, 30 plus 1470 minus, yeah, like fucking 4 pips or some shit. Yeah, but we'll wait for another step, right, chat? You came down to rebirth zone low. I don't know if it's continue driving. I am expecting a top wick here. I'm not gonna lie to you guys before coming up. There's a chance that this thing could just continue to drive here. But I'm getting out here. I'm gonna wait for a better opportunity after news settles down a little bit, right? Yeah, I'll wait for numbers to come out or numbers to settle down. 233 should be our positions today, so there won't be anything until then. But this trade was, I mean, it's a win. Is chat gonna be happy about it? I mean, no, but like I said, right? I can't.
At St. Jude, we don't care who cures cancer, we just need to advance the cure. The heart of St. Jude is to take care of children with catastrophic diseases and to advance their
or not. This is like the same level we were at 2 Thursdays ago and pretty much where we ended the week last week after that expiration. Pretty wild, but it makes a lot of sense because tomorrow you get Jerome Powell. So I have the final update for you today. We are going to go over the FOMC statement, and I am going to show you what to look for. If you feel like you are behind,
And I'm also going to make sure this is as loud. I'm going to mute the background music to make sure they don't play any. Okay, there we go. I know y'all can't hear it right now. We're just waiting for it to start. Again, you can see it hasn't started yet. Again, will they raise rates today? I don't know. This is bullish. All right. How do you personally think the market is going to react? I don't know. Honestly, it's so hard to tell because we don't know what their plan is. Like, we don't know. All right, this starts in 20 seconds. We don't know what Powell's going to do. Listen to what their inflation expectations, what their rate hike expectations are. All right, here we go. All right, so we're waiting for Powell to come out. He hasn't come out yet. Patiently waiting here. Here it comes. All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. We understand the hardship that high inflation. Price stability is the responsibility of the Federal Reserve. Without price stability, the economy does not work for anyone. In particular, without price stability, we will not achieve a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. Since early last year, the FOMC has significantly tightened the stance of monetary policy. We've raised our policy interest rate by 5.25 percentage points and have continued to reduce our securities holdings at a brisk pace. We've covered a lot of ground, and the full effects of our tightening have yet to be felt. Today, we decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged and to continue to reduce our securities holdings. Looking ahead, we're in a position to proceed carefully in determining the extent of additional policy firming that may be appropriate. Our decisions will be based on our ongoing assessments of the incoming data and the evolving outlook and risks. I will have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has been expanding at a solid pace. And so far this year, growth in real GDP has come in above expectations. Recent readings on consumer spending have been particularly robust. Activity in the housing sector has picked up somewhat, though it remains well below levels of a year ago, largely reflecting higher mortgage rates. Higher interest rates also appear to be weighing on business fixed investment. In our Summary of Economic Projections, or SEP, committee participants revised up their assessments of real GDP growth, with the median for this year now at 2.1%. Participants expect growth to cool, with the median projection falling to 1.5% next year. The labor market remains tight, but supply and demand conditions continue to come into better balance. Over the past 3 months, payroll job gains averaged 150,000 jobs per month, a strong pace that is nevertheless well below that seen earlier in the year. The unemployment rate ticked up in August, but remains low at 3.8%. The labor force participation rate has moved up since late last year, particularly for individuals aged 25 to 54 years. Nominal wage growth has shown some signs of easing, and job vacancies have declined so far this year. Although the jobs to workers gap has narrowed, labor demand still exceeds the supply of available workers. FOMC participants expect the rebalancing in the labor market to continue, easing upward pressures on inflation. The median unemployment rate projection in the SEP rises from 3.8% at the end of this year to 4.1% over the next 2 years. Inflation remains well above our longer run goal of 2%, 4% over the 12 months ending in August, and that excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 3.9%. Inflation has moderated somewhat since the middle of last year, and longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. Nevertheless, the process of getting inflation sustainably down to 2% has a long way to go. The median projection in the SEP for total PCE inflation is 3.3% this year, falls to 2.5% next year, and reaches 2% in 2026. The Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We are highly attentive to the risks that high inflation poses to both sides of our mandate, and we are strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. As I noted earlier, since early last year, we have raised our policy rate by 5.25 percentage points. We see the current stance of monetary policy as restrictive, putting downward pressure on economic activity, hiring, and inflation. In addition,
yeah, their YouTube channel has been glitchy today, man. You'll see, like,
the economy is facing headwinds from tighter credit conditions for households and businesses. Range for the federal funds rate at 5.25 to 5.5%, and to continue the process of significantly reducing our securities holdings. We are committed to achieving and sustaining a stance of monetary policy that is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to our 2% goal over time. In our SEP, FOMC participants wrote down their individual assessments of an appropriate path for the federal funds rate based on what each participant judges to be the most likely.
So 2% in 2027
going forward. If the economy evolves as projected, the median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 5.6% at the end of this year, 5.1% at the end of 2024, and 3.9% at the end of 2025. Compared with our June summary of economic projections, the median projection is unrevised for the end of this year, but has moved up by 0.5 percentage point at the end of the next 2 years. These projections, of course, are not a committee's decision or plan. If the economy does not evolve as projected, the path of policy will adjust as appropriate to foster our maximum employment and price stability goals. We will continue to make our decisions meeting by meeting based on the totality of the incoming data and their implications for the outlook for economic activity and inflation, as well as the balance of risks. Given how far we have come, we are in a position to proceed carefully as we assess the incoming data and the evolving outlook and risks. Real interest rates now are well above mainstream estimates of the neutral policy rate, but we are mindful of the inherent uncertainties in precisely gauging the stance of policy. We're prepared to raise rates further if appropriate, and we intend to hold policy at a restrictive level until we're confident that inflation is moving down sustainably toward our objective. In determining the extent of additional policy firming that may be appropriate to return inflation to 2% over time, the committee will take into account the cumulative tightening of monetary policy, the lags with which monetary policy affects economic activity and inflation, and economic and financial developments. We remain committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keep.
Yeah, this is on their end, man. Their latency has not been good today.
Keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. It's essential to set the stage for achieving maximum employment and stable prices over the longer run. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
All right, so we'll see what they're doing. So cycle by cycle is what I heard is what they're going to plan to do.
Bobby Smith with the Financial Times. What makes the committee inclined to think that the Fed funds rate at this level is not yet sufficiently restrictive, especially when officials are forecasting a slightly more benign inflation outlook for this year? There's noted uncertainty about policy lags. Headwinds have emerged from the looming government shutdown, the end of federal childcare funding, resumption of student debt payments, things of that nature.
So I guess I would characterize the situation a little bit differently. So we decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate where it is at 5.25% to 5.5%, while continuing to reduce our securities holdings. And we say we're committed to achieving and sustaining a stance of monetary policy that's sufficiently restrictive to bring down inflation to 2% over time. We said that. But the fact that we decided to maintain the policy rate at this meeting doesn't mean that we've decided that we have or have not at this time reached that stance of monetary policy that we're seeking. If you looked at the SEP, as you obviously will have done, you will see that a majority of participants believe that it is more likely than not that it will be appropriate for us to raise rates one more time in the 2 remaining meetings this year. Others believe that we have already reached that. So it's something where we're not making a decision by deciding to about that question, by deciding to just maintain the rate and await further data.
So right now, it's still an open question about sufficiently restrictive. You're not saying today that we've reached this level.
We're not saying, no. Clearly, what we decided to do is maintain the policy rate and await further data. We want to see convincing evidence, really, that we have reached the appropriate level, and we're seeing progress, and we welcome that. But we need to see more progress before we'll be willing to reach that conclusion.
And
So
just
no
on the
guidance.
2024 projections, what's behind that shallower path for interest rate cuts and the need for real rates to be 50 basis points higher?
Right. So I would say it this way. First of all, real interest rates are positive now. They're meaningfully positive. And that's a good thing. We need policy to be restrictive so that we can get inflation down to target. Okay. And we're going to need that to remain to be the case for some time. So I think, remember that of course, the SEP is not a plan that is negotiated or discussed really as a plan. It's accumulation really, and what you see are the medians. It's accumulation of individual forecasts from 19 people, and what you're seeing are the medians. So I wouldn't want to, bestow upon it the idea that that's really a plan. But what it reflects, though, is that economic activity has been stronger than we expected, stronger than I think everyone expected. And so what you're seeing is this is what people believe as of now will be appropriate to achieve what we're looking to achieve, which is progress toward our inflation goal, as you see in the SEP.
Thanks. Let's go to Rachel.
Hi, Chair Powell. Rachel Siegel from the Washington Post. Thanks for taking our questions. How would you characterize the debate around another hike or holding steady? Is it discussion around lag times, fear of too much slowing, too little slowing? Could you walk us through what this disagreement was about at the meeting?
Yeah. So the proposal at the meeting was to maintain our current policy stance, and I think there was obviously unanimous support for that. But this, of course, is an SEP meeting, and so people write down what they think, and you got some, you saw, I think 7 wrote down no hike at this meeting or between now and the end of the year, and I think 12 wrote down another single hike in one of the next two meetings that we have between the end of the year. So it wasn't like we were arguing over that. People were just stating their positions. And really what people are saying is, let's see how the data come in. You know, we want to see, what we want to see. We want to see that these good inflation readings that we've been seeing for the last 3 months, we want to see that it's more than just 3 months, right? We want to see, the labor market report that we received, the last one that we received, was a good example of what we do want to see. It was a combination of across a broad range of indicators, continuing rebalancing of the labor market. So those are the two things. Those are our two mandate variables, and that's the progress that we want to see. But I think people, they want to be convinced. They want to be careful not to jump to a conclusion really one way or the other, but just be convinced that the data, support that conclusion. And that's why, given how far we've come and how quickly we've come, we're actually in a position to be able to proceed carefully as we assess the incoming data and the evolving outlooks and risks and make these decisions meeting by meeting.
And in your view, I know nothing has been decided yet, but what would one more hike at the end of the year do to the economy or to inflation? And on the other side, what would no hike do, if you could sort of game that out for us?
So, you could make the argument that one hike one way or the other won't matter, but for us, we're trying, obviously as a group, it's a pretty tight cluster of where we think that policy stance might be, but we're always going to be learning from data. We've learned all through the course of the last year that actually we needed to go further than we had thought. You go back a year and what we wrote down, it's actually gotten higher and higher. So we don't really know and that's why, again, we're in a position to proceed carefully at this point. A year ago, we proceeded pretty quickly to get rates up. Now we're fairly close, we think, to where we need to get. It's just a question of reaching the right stance. I wouldn't attribute huge importance to one hike in macroeconomic terms. Nonetheless, we need to get to a place where we're confident that we have a stance that will bring inflation down to 2% over time. That's what we need to get to, and we've been moving toward it. As we've gotten closer to it, we've slowed the pace at which we've moved. I think that was appropriate. And now that we're getting closer, we have the ability to proceed carefully.
This all seems pretty neutral to me, to be honest.
But Sharon, I want to return to Colby's question here. What is it saying about the committee's view of the inflation dynamic in the economy that you achieve the same forecast inflation rate for next year, but need another 0.5 point of the funds rate on it? Does it tell us that the committee believes inflation to be more persistent, requires more medicine effectively? And I guess a related question is, if you're going to project a funds rate above the longer run rate for 4 years in a row, at what point do we start to think, hey, maybe the longer rate or the neutral rate is actually higher? Thank you.
So I guess I would point more to, rather than pointing to a sense of inflation having become more persistent, I wouldn't think that's not, we've seen inflation be more persistent over the course of the past year, but I wouldn't say that's something that's appeared in the recent data. It's more about stronger economic activity, I would say. So if I had to attribute one thing, again, we're picking medians here and trying to attribute one explanation, but I think broadly, stronger economic activity means rates. We have to do more with rates, and that's what that meaning is telling you. In terms of what the neutral rate can be, we know it by its works. We only know it by its works, really. We can't the model.
Yeah, again, their stuff has been kind of off, man. Again, this is on their end. You can see it's still live.
Again, that's another reason why we're moving carefully now, because there are lags here. So that it may of course be that the neutral rate has risen. You do see people. You don't see the median moving, but you do see people raising their estimates of the neutral rate, and it's certainly plausible that the neutral rate is higher than the longer run rate. Remember, what we write down in the SEP is the longer run rate. It is certainly possible that that the neutral rate at this moment is higher than that, and that's part of the explanation for why the economy has been more resilient than expected.
Howard Schein with Reuters. Thank you. So you said several times that the economy needed a period of below trend growth to get inflation consistently back to 2%. You kind of get that in 2024 a little bit. 1.5% is just a touch below what's the estimate of potential. So the fact that you're getting so much done at so much less cost, does that represent a change in how you think inflation works, a change in how you think the economy works, a change in the mix of supply healing versus demand destruction that's necessary to achieve this?
Yes, of course, it is a good thing that we've seen now meaningful rebalancing in the labor market without an increase in unemployment, and that's because we're seeing that rebalancing in other places, in, for example, job openings and in the jobs worker gap. You're also seeing supply side things, so that's happening. I would say though, I still think, and I think broadly people still think that there'll have to be some softening in the labor market that can come through more supply, as we've seen as well. Also, remember the natural rate we think is coming down, which is a supply side thing, so that the gap between any given unemployment rate that's lower than that and the natural rate comes down. That's a way for supplies. That's a way for the labor market to achieve a better balance. So all of those things are happening. You're right. In the median forecast, we don't see a big increase in unemployment. We do see an increase. And but that really is just playing forward the trends that we've been seeing. That is not guaranteed. There may come a time when unemployment goes up more than that, but that's really what we've been seeing is progress without higher unemployment for now.
So just to boil that down for a second, we've gone from a very narrow path to a soft landing to something different. Would you call the soft landing now a baseline expectation?
No, I would not do that. I would just say, what would I say about that? I've always thought that the soft landing was a plausible outcome, that there was a path really to a soft landing. I thought that, and I've said that since we lifted off. It's also possible that the path is narrowed and it's widened. Apparently, ultimately, this may be decided by factors that are outside our control at the end of the day. But I do think it's possible, and I also think this is why we're in a position to move carefully again. That we will restore price stability. We know that we have to do that, and we know the public depends on us doing that. And we know that we have to do it so that we can achieve the kind of labor market that we all want to achieve, which is an extended period, sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. We know that. The fact that we've come this far lets us really proceed carefully, as I keep saying. So I think that's the end we're trying to achieve. I wouldn't want to handicap the likelihood of it, though. It's not up to me to do that.
Nick Timrose of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, both you and Vice Chair Williams have indicated that sufficiently restrictive will be judged on a real rather than nominal basis, implying some scope for nominal rate cuts next year, provided further compelling evidence that price pressures will continue to subside. Is the FOMC focused on targeting a real level of policy restriction? And can you explain what would constitute enough evidence that will allow the FOMC to normalize the nominal stance of policy while keeping real policy settings sufficiently restrictive?
I mean, yes, we understand that it's a real rate that will matter and it needs to be sufficiently restrictive. Again, I would say, sufficiently restrictive only when you see it. It's not something you can arrive at with confidence in a model or in various estimates, And so what are we seeing? We're seeing, through a combination of the unwinding of the pandemic-related demand and supply distortions and monetary policies work in suppressing demand or alleviating very high demand. The combination of those two things is actually working. You're seeing, inflation coming down. It's principally now in goods, also in housing services. You begin to see effects of it in non-housing services as well. So we think that is working. And I think, well, as we've said, we want to reach that. We want to reach something that we're confident it gets us to that level. And I think confidence comes from seeing, enough data that you feel like, yes, okay, this feels like we can for now decide that this is the right level and just agree to stay here. We're not permanently deciding not to go higher, but we would, let's say if we get to that level. And then the question is how long you stay at that level. And that's a whole nother set of questions. For now, the question is trying to find that level where we think we can stay there. And we haven't gotten to a point.
Man, they've been bad with this lag today, man. And this is not my end. You can see when it starts, it's still live.
That's the stage
this year. And even then, it seems possible the core PCE inflation could come in even lower than the median at 3.7%. Would you see a case to raise rates still if it turned out that you were going to achieve the same real rate this year because the decline in inflation proceeds somewhat better than you currently anticipate?
The decision that we make at each meeting, and certainly at the last two meetings this year, it's going to depend on the totality of all the data. So the inflation data, the labor market data, the growth data, the balance of risks and the other events that are happening out there. We take all of that into account. So I can't really answer a hypothetical about one piece of that. It'll be trying to reach a judgment over whether we should move forward with another rate hike overall, and whether that would increase our confidence that yes, this is an appropriate move, and it will help us be more confident that we've gotten to the level that we need to get to.
Yeah, so that's like CPI, PCE, PPI.
Thanks, Chair Powell. Following up on Nick's question, actually, John Williams, the New York Fed president, obviously has said things to the effect of next year, as we see inflation kind of, again, to Nick's point, as we see inflation coming down, we're going to need to reduce interest rates to make sure that we're not squeezing the economy harder and harder over time. And I wonder if that's basically the logic that you apply. Is that how you think about it? And then I also wonder, in the last press conference, you said something to the effect of, it's a full year out, those discussions, and people interpreted that to mean that you didn't see a possibility of a rate cut in the first half of next year. And I wonder if that was what you meant by that, or whether, how you're thinking about that timing.
No, when I answer these questions about hypotheticals about cutting, I'm never intending to send a signal about timing. I'm just answering them as the question is expressed. So please, I wouldn't want to be taken that way. Sorry, the first question was that, Helen? Yeah, so as we go into next year, that's the question we'll be asking is, taking into account lags and everything else we know about the economy and everything we know about monetary policy. The time will come at some point, and I'm not saying when, that it's appropriate to cut. Part of that may be that real rates are rising because inflation is coming down. Part of it just may be that it'll be all the factors that we see in the economy. And, that time will certainly come at some point. And what you see is us writing down, a year ahead estimates of what that might be. And, there's so much uncertainty around that. When we, in the moment, we'll do what we think makes sense. No one will look back at this and say, hey, we made a plan. It's not like that at all. These are estimates made a year in advance that are highly uncertain, and that's how it is.
Thanks so much, Chair Powell. Neil Irwin with Axios. I wonder, how do you think about the question of whether the strong GDP growth we've been seeing is driven by excess demand versus supply side factors, productivity, labor force growth? And relatedly, if GDP keeps coming in hot, even in the absence of inflation resurgence, would that on its own be a reason to consider more tightening?
So on your first question, we're looking at GDP very, very carefully to try to understand really what's the direction of it, what's driving it, and it's a lot of consumer spending. The consumer's been very robust in spending. So that is, that's how we're looking at it. Sorry, your second question was?
There's GDP stays hot, but without inflation.
So I think the question will be, GDP is not a mandate, right? Maximum employment and price stability are the mandates. The question will be, is GDP, is the heat that we see in GDP, is it really a threat to our ability to get back to 2% inflation? That's going to be the question. It's not a question about GDP on its own. It's you're expecting to see this improvement, continued rebalancing in the labor market and inflation moving back down to 2% in a sustainable way. We have to have confidence in that, and we'd be looking at GDP just to the extent that it threatens one or both of those.
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. There are multiple external factors that are playing out right now. We see rising oil prices. We see auto workers striking. There's the looming, very real possibility of a government shutdown. And I was just wondering, for each of those things, could you talk about how you're thinking about how that might affect the course for the Fed and the economy?
So there is a long list, and you hit some of them. But it's the strike, it's government shutdown, resumption of student loan payments, higher long-term rates, oil price shock. There are a lot of things that you can look at, and so what we try to do is assess all of them and handicap all of them. And ultimately, though, there's so much uncertainty around these things. I mean, to start with the strike, first of all, we absolutely don't comment on the strike, as we have no view on the strike one way or the other. But we do have to make an assessment of its economic effects to do our jobs. So. The thing about it is so uncertain. It will depend. The economic effects, it could affect. We've looked back at history. It could affect economic output, hiring, and inflation. But that's really going to depend on how broad it is and how long it's sustained for. And then it also depends on how quickly production can make up for lost production. So none of those things are known right now. It's very, very hard to know. So you just have to leave that uncertain and
Man, dude, what a weird day.
We'll be learning, I think, over the course of the next intermeeting period. It hasn't traditionally had much of a macroeconomic effect. Energy prices being higher, that is a significant thing. Energy prices being up can affect spending. It can affect over time. A sustained period of higher energy prices can affect consumer expectations about inflation. We tend to look through short-term volatility and look at core inflation. But so the question is, how long are higher prices sustained? We have to take those macroeconomic effects into account as well. Those are some of them. I'm not sure if I hit them all, but ultimately, you're coming into this with an economy that appears to have significant momentum, and that's what we start with. But we do have this collection of risks that you mentioned.
Greg Torres from Bloomberg News. I was a little surprised, Chair Powell, to hear you say that a soft landing is not a primary objective. This economy is seeing added supply in a way that could create long-term inflation stability. We have prime age labor force participation moving up where people can add skills. Workers want to work. We have a boom in manufacturing construction. We've had a decent spate of home building. And since inflation's coming down with strong GDP growth, we may have higher productivity. All are which good for the Fed's longer run target of low inflation. And if we lose that in a recession, aren't we opting for the awful hysteresis that we had in 2010? So are you taking this into account as you pursue policy? Thank you.
To begin, a soft landing is a primary objective, and I did not say otherwise. I mean, that's what we've been trying to achieve for all this time. The real point, though, is the worst thing we can do is to fail to restore price stability, because the record is clear on that. If you don't restore price stability, inflation comes back, and you can have a long period where the economy is just very uncertain, and it'll affect growth, it'll affect all kinds of things. It can be a miserable period to have inflation constantly coming back and the Fed coming in and having to tighten again and again. So the best thing we can do for everyone, we believe, is to restore price stability. I think now, today, we actually, we have the ability to be careful at this point and move carefully, and that's what we're planning to do. So we fully appreciate the benefits of being able to continue what we see already, which is rebalancing in the labor market and inflation coming down without seeing, an important, large increase in unemployment, which has been typical of other tightening cycles. So.
Hi, thank you. Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. When you look at the disinflation that has taken place so far, do you see it mostly as a result of what some economists are calling the low-hanging fruit, such as the unwinding of supply chain snarls and other pandemic disruptions, or is it more about a broad disinflationary trend that involves most goods and services across the economy? Thank you.
So if I understood your question, I would say it this way. I think we knew from before when we lifted off, and certainly by the time we knew that bringing inflation back down was going to take, as I call it, the unwinding of these distortions to both supply and demand that happened because of the pandemic and the response. So that unwinding was going to be important. In addition, monetary policy was going to help. It was going to help supply side heal by cooling demand off, and just in general, a lot better aligning supply with demand. So those two forces were always going to be important. It's very hard to pull them apart. They work together. I do think both of them are at work now, and I think they're at work in a way that shows you the progress that we are seeing.
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Television and Radio. In June, you forecast a 5.
Man, I don't know what's up with their lag today, man. They have been lagging constantly all day. Their volume is bad today. Like everything's just rough on their end.
What would justify that last move? Because the median forecast is for lower inflation. And given all the known unknowns that you face, how much confidence do you have, can investors have, or the American people have in your forecasts?
Well, forecasts are highly uncertain. Forecasting is very difficult. Forecasters are a humble lot with much to be humble about. But to get to your question, though, what's happened is growth has come in stronger, right? Stronger than expected, and that's required higher rates. Unemployment, you also see that the ultimate unemployment rate is not as high, but that's really because of what we've been seeing in the labor market. We've seen more and more progress in the labor market without seeing significantly higher unemployment. So we're continuing that trend. In terms of inflation, you are seeing the last 3 readings are very, very good readings. It's only 3 readings. We were well aware that we need to see more than 3 readings. But if you look at June, July, and August, you're looking at really significant declines in core inflation, largely in the goods sector, also to some extent in housing services, and just a little in non-housing services. Those are the 3 buckets. Headline inflation, of course, has come way down, largely due to lower energy prices, some of which is now reversing. So I think people should know that economic forecasting is very difficult, and these are highly uncertain forecasts. But these are our forecasts. We have very high quality people working on these forecasts, and I think they stand up well against other forecasters. But just the nature of the business is the economy is very difficult to forecast.
Given the forecast that you have, what justified not moving today, and what could justify moving in the future if you think?
Well, I think we have come very far, very fast in the rate increases that we've made. And I think it was important at the beginning that we moved quickly, and we did. And I think as we get closer to the rate that we think, the stance of monetary policy that we think is appropriate to bring inflation down to 2% over time, the risks become more two-sided. And the risk of over-tightening and the risk of under-tightening becomes more equal. And I think the natural common sense thing to do is as you approach that, you move a little more slowly as you get closer to it. And that's what we're doing. So we're taking advantage of the fact that we have moved quickly to move a little more carefully now as we sort of find our way to the right level of restriction that we need to get inflation back down to 2%.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Jennifer Schonberger with Yahoo Finance. With your focus on year-over-year PCE, isn't it true that base effects are huge, and that by the time you meet in November, that it's more likely that you'll have a low PCE number that would make you feel more comfortable? And secondly, how will the lack of key indicators like CPI, the jobs report, impact your approach in upcoming meetings if we were to have a government shutdown? Thank
Sorry.
you.
Yeah, I missed the first question. What was the what factors?
The base factors.
Base factors. Ah. Okay. So on that, we're looking at just monthly, right? You can look at just monthly readings and see what the increase was from the prior month. So you're right. When you go back 3, 6, and 12 months, you get base factors, but we can adjust for that. In terms of not getting data, again, we don't comment on government shutdowns. It's possible if there is a government shutdown and it lasts through the next meeting, then it's possible we wouldn't be getting some of the data that we would ordinarily get, and we would just have to deal with that. And I don't know. It's hard for me to say in advance how that would affect that meeting. It would depend on all kinds of factors that I don't know about now, but it's certainly a reality that's a possibility.
As those kind of fall out of the equation for the next couple of readings by November, would you feel more comfortable at that point?
Yes. I mean, if you're looking, if we can tell how much inflation has gone up in a given month, right? And that's what we're looking at. And month by month, what's the reading? And I think what we're really looking at is there's a tendency to look at shorter and shorter maturities, but they're incredibly volatile and they can be misleading. That's why we look at 12 months. But I think in this situation where it looks like we've had a bit of a turn in inflation starting in June, we're also looking at 6 months and even 3 months, but really 6 months inflation. So you're looking at it over that period and over longer periods. That's the right way to go. And we don't need to be in a hurry in getting to a conclusion about what to do. We can let the data evolve.
Thanks for the question, Chair Powell. Edward Lawrence with Fox Business. So I want to focus back in on oil prices. We're seeing oil prices, as you mentioned, move up, and that's pushing the price of gas. So how does that factor into your decision to raise rates or not? Because the last two inflation reports, PCE and CPI, we've seen the overall inflation has actually risen.
Right. So, energy prices are very important for the consumer. This can affect consumer spending. It certainly can affect consumer sentiment. I mean, gas prices are one of the big things that affects consumer sentiment. It really comes down to how persistent, how sustained these energy prices are. The reason why we look at core inflation, which excludes food and energy, is that energy goes up and down like that, and it doesn't. Energy prices mostly don't contain much of a signal about how tight the economy is, and hence don't tell you much about where inflation's really going. However, we're well aware, though, that if energy prices increase and stay high, that'll have an effect on spending, and it may have an effect on consumer expectations of inflation and things like that. That's just things we have to monitor. So.
On the consumer, they're putting more and more of this on their credit card. The consumer seeing record credit spending. How long do you think the consumer can manage that debt at higher interest rates now? And are you concerned about a debt bubble related to that?
So to finish my prior thought, I was saying that's why we tend to look through energy moves that we can see as short-term volatility. Turning to consumer credit, of course, we watch that carefully. Consumer distress, measures of distress among consumers were at historic lows quite recently, during and after the pandemic. They're now moving back up to normal. We're watching that carefully, but at this point, these readings they're not at troublingly high levels. They're just kind of moving back up to what was typical in the pre-pandemic era.
Hi, Jean Young with MNI Market News. Yields along the Treasury curve have risen to their highest in years. What is the Fed's view about what's been driving that increase in recent weeks, and how much of it can be attributed to macro explanations and how much to technical factors?
So you're right. Rates have moved up significantly. I think it's always hard to say precisely, but most people do a common decomposition of the increase, and the view will be it's not mostly about inflation expectations. It's mostly about other things, either term premium or real yields, and it's hard to be precise about this. Of course, everyone's got models that'll give you a very precise answer, but they give you different answers. So, but essentially, they're moving up because it's not because of inflation. It's because it'll probably have something to do with stronger growth. I would say more supply of treasuries. The common explanations that you hear in the markets kind of make sense.
Kyle Campbell, American Banker. Thank you for taking the questions. Just two on housing. You said slower shelter cost growth is in the pipeline and will reflect in inflation readings as new leases are signed. But there's also some questions out there about the way housing costs are measured, particularly the use of rental equivalents, which are estimates from homeowners about what their homes would rent for if they were in the rental market. So my question is, how much of the effort to tame inflation, both as it's measured and felt by the broader public, hinges on housing supply? And then as far as a constrained housing supply being sort of exacerbated by this sort of lock-in effect of mortgages being higher now than they were at their recent historic lows, how is that going to impact future thinking about taking interest rates to that lower bound in the future?
So on the supply point, of course, supply is very important over time in setting house prices and for that matter rents. And supply is kind of structurally constrained. But in terms of where inflation is going in the near term, though, as you obviously know, a lot of it is leases that are running off and then being re-signed or released at a level that's it won't be that much higher. A year ago it would have been much higher than it was a year before. Now it may be below or at the same level. So as those leases are rolling over, we're seeing what we expect, which is measured housing services inflation coming down. Your second question was the lock-ins. How much is that affecting things, really?
Is that going to affect your decisions to potentially bring rates down to their lower bound in the future, sort of creating that sort of bubble of buying and then a lock-in that sort of stagnates the housing market?
I think we look at I would look at the lock-in. The idea being that people are in very low rate mortgages, and even if they want to move now, it would be hard because the new mortgage would be so expensive. Play a role in our future decisions in a future loosening cycle about whether we would cut rates. No, I don't think it would. I mean, I don't think that's. I think we'd be looking at what fundamentally what rates does the economy need, and in an emergency like the pandemic or during the global financial crisis, you have to cut rates to the point that you have to do what you can to support the economy. So I wouldn't think that would be a reason for us not to do that. It's not something we're thinking about at all right now, but down the road I wouldn't think so.
Hi, Nancy Marshall-Genzer with Marketplace. Chair Powell, you've mentioned several things that would possibly weigh on consumer confidence, maybe cut back consumer spending, possible government shutdown, high gas prices. At this point, would the Fed welcome a decrease in consumer spending? Would that help you get inflation closer to your 2% target?
I wouldn't say it that way. We're not looking for a decrease in consumer spending. It's a good thing that the economy is strong. It's a good thing that the economy has been able to hold up under the tightening that we've done. It's a good thing that the labor market's strong. The only concern, and it just means this: if the economy comes in stronger than expected, that just means we'll have to do more in terms of monetary policy to get back to 2%, because we will get back to 2%. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I guess on the other hand, would you worry that that could contribute to an economic slowdown or even a recession?
Well, that's always a concern. I mean, concern number one is restoring price stability, because in the long run, that's something we have to do so that we can have the kind of economy we really want, which is one with sustained period of tight labor market conditions that benefit all, as I've said a couple of times. So that said, of course, we also now, given how far we've come with our rate hikes and how quickly we've come here, we do have the ability to be careful as we move forward because of that consideration.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Simon Rabinovich with The Economist. One of the factors in the economic resilience to date appears to be a lesser degree of rate sensitivity than in the past. Obviously, we've talked about households with long fixed rate mortgages, also companies that refinanced before last year. What is your thinking about the efficacy of rates and how that's changed? And then related to that, how do you think about the distributional consequences in the sense that if you're a relatively wealthy household with a long fixed rate mortgage, the past year has not been all that tough with rates going up. Whereas if you're relying on your credit card for supporting your consumption, in fact, times are getting a lot tougher, a lot more quickly. Thanks.
So what? I guess it's fair to say that the economy has been stronger than many expected, given what's been happening with interest rates. Why is that? Many candidate explanations. Possibly a number of them make sense. One is just that household balance sheets and business balance sheets have been stronger than we had understood, and so that's spending is held up and that kind of thing. We're not sure about that. The savings rate for consumers has come down a lot. The question is whether that's sustainable. That could be. It could just mean that the date of effect is later. It could also be that for other reasons, the neutral rate of interest is higher for various reasons. We don't know that. It could also just be that policy hasn't been restrictive enough for long enough. And there are many candidate explanations. We have to, in all this uncertainty, make policy. And I feel like what we have right now is what's still a very
Man, dude.
market, but it's coming back into balance. We were making progress on inflation.
See, this is
By many
them.
forecasts,
See, look, that's them.
Many forecasts call for growth to moderate over the course of the next year. So that's where we are, and we have to deal with what comes. On your second question your second question was distributional, but can you be a little clearer about that?
Yeah, my point there was that if you're somebody who has a long fixed rate mortgage, you've been able to endure the higher rates relatively easily. If you're somebody who's living month to month off of your credit card, current financing rates are punitive.
Yes, and so the point I would make there is that we're trying to get inflation back down. The people who are most hurt by inflation are the people who are on a fixed income. If you're a person who spends all of your income, you don't really have any meaningful savings. You spend all your income on the basics of life: clothing, food, transportation, heating, the basics. And prices go up by 5, 6, 7%. You're in trouble right away. Whereas even middle class people have some savings and some ability to absorb that. So it is for those people, as much as for anybody, that we need to restore price stability. And we want to do it as quickly as possible. Obviously, we would like to do that. We'd like the current trend to continue, which is that we're making progress without seeing the kind of increase in unemployment that we've seen in past things. But you're right, though. When we raise rates, people who are living on credit cards and borrowing are going to feel that more. They are, and of course, people with lots of savings also have a much lower marginal propensity to consume, and so it's not going to affect them as much.
Last question.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Greg Robb from MarketWatch. In the Beige Book recently, you can tell that the Fed has been surveying nonprofits and community groups about the economic health of low-income Americans, moderate-income Americans. I have two questions about this. Are you going to use that data to maybe come up with sort of like a quarterly survey of those groups, like the Senior Loan Officer Survey? And and also the second question is, from your recent readings of these surveys, how are low and moderate Americans doing? Is there this thing where like the GDP is strong because of wealthy Americans kind of driving things? I just want to get your sense of the health of that sector. Thank you.
So I don't know about the quarterly survey. That's an idea we can take away and think about. In terms of how low and moderate Americans, they're clearly we're suffering from high inflation. I think during the pandemic, the government transfers that happened were very meaningful. And if you know the surveys that we take showed that low and moderate income people were actually in very, very strong financial condition. I think now it's a very hot labor market, and you're seeing high nominal wages, and you're starting to see real wages are now positive by most measures. So I think overall households are in good shape. Surveys are a different thing. So surveys are showing dissatisfaction, and I think a lot of that is just people hate inflation, hate it, and that causes people to say the economy is terrible. But at the same time, they're spending money. Their behavior is not exactly what you would expect from the surveys. That's kind of a guess at what the answer might be. But I think there's a lot of good things happening on household balance sheets, and certainly in the labor market and with wages. The biggest wage increases having gone to relatively low wage jobs, and now inflation coming down, you're seeing real wages, which is a good thing. Thanks very much.
All right, that's Big Papa Powell. He's heading out now. That is it for today. Let me know what you guys think, guys. Again, that is Powell today. The market has definitely negative reacted to this. There's the NASDAQ. We're not even, again, people are being dramatic, acting like it's the end of the world, like we get on every major economic report. What I heard mostly from this report is that he's pretty neutral. He doesn't really want to make any definitive statements. He doesn't really want to say, yeah, we are going to pause for the rest of the year. He doesn't want to say we're going to raise again this year. He doesn't want to say we are going to hit a recession next year. He doesn't want to say we're not going to hit a recession next year. Overall, it was pretty neutral. The market definitely reacted somewhat bearishly, but again, we're not super low. SPY still over 440s, still over the last few weeks' lows. Like, it's not the end of the world. And right now, it's pretty choppy. Tomorrow, we do have jobless claims and durable good orders. Next week, we got a bunch of stuff going down. And then earnings season starts again in October. So again, let me know what you guys think we're going to get. And with that said, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you haven't already, hit the notification bell. Help me break 115,000 subs. We're actually pretty close to breaking 115,000 subs, guys. Let me see where we at. We are at... And again, they were laggy, bro. It was a choppy stream. Oh, we need 100 subs right now. We got 2,500 people here. Listen, we cover all these major economic releases. We cover all the FOMC meetings. Jobless claims report tomorrow. We'll be streaming live. CPI, PPI, Jerome Powell press conferences. We cover all of it, interpret all of it. We're pretty neutral on everything. We don't sell a course. We don't act like experts. My goal is just to help new traders and help traders in general. And the reason we get thousands of people here because we're reliable and we cover the data quick. And so you can either pay $30K for Bloomberg Terminal or you can subscribe to Beginner Trading for free. So hit the subscribe button. I appreciate the love and support. Again, if you want to check out our sponsors, again, I'm biased in both of their favor because they pay me money, but they're useful. If you want to day trade